Hey everyone, Dan McKenzie here with the McKenzie Law Firm. We are an estate planning, estate administration, and small business counsel law firm in the Denver area in Colorado. And I wanted to make a video today talking about one of the most important parts of putting together an estate plan. And that is, what kind of guidance do you give your trustee if your plan includes a trust? And so quick explanation of how trusts work. Again, a trust is an agreement. It's between three people. You've got the person creating the trust. If you're the one doing the planning, that's you. You're the one who has the property. You're the one who has the beneficiaries out there that you want to leave that property to. You write those opinions down in a trust agreement. You hand that trust agreement and the property over to your trustee. Your trustee is the person whose their job is to execute the instructions that you gave them and to protect the property for the beneficiaries. So if you hand over a rental property, for example, to your trustee and say, give this to my kids when they turn 30, up until that point, the trustee's job is to make sure that that rental property is being maintained, being kept up, being occupied, insured, the taxes are being paid, all that kind of stuff that goes into property ownership to make sure that it is the value of that property is maximized for the beneficiaries, who's the last people involved in a trust. And so when trying to decide, what do I tell my trustee? There is a wide range of possibilities as far as how specific you want to be, or maybe you don't want to be specific at all. Every trust contains the instructions saying, hold this property, give it to my beneficiaries for their health, education, maintenance, or support. So if you're out there Googling, you might run into something that's called the HEMS standard, H-E-M-S, and that's what that stands for. And you can leave it at that. So if you set up a trust for minor kids saying, hold this property for them until they turn, some certain age, and up until that time, use it for their health, education, maintenance, or support. And like I say, no more. Like, your trustee's job is to figure out, what do I mean by maintenance or support, especially. I think health and education, probably a little bit clearer. If the kid shows up with a hospital bill or maybe a tuition bill, that probably fits in with those two. Gets a little bit closer to the line if, we're talking about paying for room and board, or, recreation expenses while they're at college. Does that count as education? But maintenance or support, really, there are court, cases about this out there. I think the consensus among most people who do this is really maintenance or support kind of means supporting a lifestyle that the beneficiary is used to, right? So if they were raised, vacationing in somewhere and going to their grandparents in Florida, for example, we're not using their trust to now upgrade them to going to 5-star resorts in Switzerland, ski trips and stuff like that. So that is beyond maintenance or support. But still, even within that, there's just a lot of decisions that need to be made. So you can be very specific. You can tell your trustee, look, I want you to give it to them for these purposes, and then at these ages, I want you to give them these dollar amounts or these percentages. Even within that, though, let's say you do have a 10-year-old child and you're creating a trust, and you're thinking, well, I probably want my trustee to kind of be in control of this until they really are into adulthood. So let's go ahead and say, hold it for them until they're 30. And then when they're 30, give it all to them. So that seems like, maybe the clearest instruction you could give, without a lot of debate about what does it mean to give a person an entire trust when they turn 30. But up until 30, they got a lot of decisions to make. Like I said, the trustee's job is to keep protecting the property. And if you gave them a rental property and they're thinking, well, we're really, not really expecting the rental market in the city to do very well over the coming years, so maybe we should sell it and get into the stock market or something like that. I mean, those are the kinds of things that a trustee kind of needs to decide and be thinking about all the time. And so it's a real challenge. And what I usually tell people when we're doing this is, the most important decision you're going to make is choosing your trustee, actually, because a really good trustee can do a lot with very vague language, and a bad trustee can really screw up a pretty specific plan. There's just a lot of ways to do that. And my example that I always tell people is, look, this is like an employment situation, right? I mean, like, you have companies out there that have jobs, they have very specific instructions for how they want those jobs done. So let's say, we're talking about McDonald's, a cashier at McDonald's. That's probably one of the most scripted jobs that you could get, right? They've got very specific instructions about how you're supposed to greet the customer, how you're supposed to be dressed, how you're supposed to ask them for what the order is, how you're supposed to go through and make sure you got the order right. I mean, all those are very, written down to a very specific level. And yet, some people are better at that job than others. Some people, I'm sure every day somewhere in America there's a McDonald's cashier being fired because they couldn't really figure out what it meant. And so, that job still has some degree of variability for people to handle it better than others. You can only imagine what it means when you hand money over to a trustee and say, hold this for health, education, maintenance, or support, and give it to my kids when you think that standard is being met, or whatever they're asking for is within those parameters. And so, you can, there are middle grounds to what I said, right? So we could just leave it at health, education, maintenance, or support, let them figure that out. We could give them very specific instructions, again, saying hold it until they reach this age, and then give them this percentage or this dollar amount, and then once they reach this age, give it all to them. Those are mandatory instructions. And in between those two, there are different levels. So what we might say is, give it to them for their health, education, maintenance, or support. By maintenance or support, here's what I mean. I mean that my beneficiaries should be, working, that they should be productive, that they're not using this money to, fully support their lifestyle. This is there just to keep them, going and keep them in the lifestyle they're used to, whatever challenges they may face. But this is not to allow them to quit their jobs and live a life of leisure. Some people actually do. They feel like, if that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. So I'm going to say the other thing. I'm going to say maintenance or support does mean go ahead and give it to them unless you see something really concerning going on. So those are kind of maybe philosophical statements or standards that we give to trustees. And again, even within that, you're getting some guidance as the trustee, but you still have decisions to make about, okay, they said maintenance or support just means supporting their lifestyle. They went out to eat a lot last month. They're asking me for money. If they went out to eat less, maybe they wouldn't need money, but eating is maintenance or support. What do I do? So again, the first way to deal with this is to pick the right person that maybe shares your values, that you trust, or someone who has maybe some experience with this. That is by far your most important decision. But there's just a lot of ways to get at this. We don't really like mandatory instructions, to be honest with you. We often encourage people who tell us to put instructions in there giving certain dollar amounts at specific times. You might want to reconsider that, because even when your kid hits 30 or 40 or 50 or, well into late in their life, people develop financial distress, or, they get divorced, or they get sued by, partners or people that they got into car accidents with. There's just all kinds of ways to develop financial problems, even if you're a pretty responsible person. And actually having a discretionary trust where your trustee has full decision, they never have to give the person the money, has real advantages in those situations, because if that comes up, they can say no, and that's actually really good for the beneficiary, because that money is protected. If you just say give it to them when they turn 30, they're going to lose that protection. So there's just a lot of things to consider here, a lot of possibilities, and we do all over the place. We have mandatory instructions, we have discretionary trusts, and it really comes down to a very personal conversation about where your kids are, what you think of them, what you think they're capable of, how old are they, how close do you feel to your trustee, how strongly do you feel that person understands what you would want. All these things go in. All these are factors into determining how much guidance you should give your trustee. So it really is a very, lots of options, and important to discuss with someone probably who knows what's possible. Because a lot of kind of the templates or online forms don't even tell you. I see a lot of forms come through that were done, through a template online type thing, and it just says, just give the money to my kids when they turn 21. I've never had a client say that after we've kind of counseled them through what that means exactly and what we might actually be talking about when the kid turns 21. So having a discussion with someone about what your options are really makes a lot of sense. So if you think you want to have that conversation with us, we're happy to do it. Again, we're in Colorado, so you know, if you have a connection here, that'd be great. But our phone number is 303-578-2745. Again, we are the McKenzie Law Firm, and I appreciate you watching this video, and I hope this was helpful.